Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Fair with the Prairie Public Library, and I'm here today to celebrate Star Wars Day by leading you through another Star Wars themed painting I came up with. Now, before you begin, you'll need a few simple things. You'll need some kind of canvas. I'm working with an 11 by 14 inch canvas, and that's what the stencils are scaled for, although you're perfectly welcome to use any size of canvas you'd like. You'll need some acrylic paint, at least 2 contrasting colors. I'm going to be using blue and white, but a number of other color options would be equally sharp. Some kind of medium to large brush, some kind of smaller brush and a straight edge to splatter paint gently. I will be using a fan brush and a painter's knife, but you could just as easily use an old toothbrush and a butter knife. Some kind of drop cloth for the inevitable splatters that will escape the canvas, and finally the stencils to do this painting. I've provided 2 forms of the stencils on our website on the Children's Activity page. The first one is a PDF file that you can print out and cut out at home to get the stencils. The second is a set of 2 PNG files that can be used with a Cricut device to cut them out automatically. Now please note, neither I nor the other staff at the Prairie Public Library can provide any technical support for using those images with your device. We provide them on an as-is basis. And that should do it for the supplies. Now, I'm going to move my camera, zoom in on the canvas so you can get a closer look, and start painting momentarily. Okay, I'm all set to start painting. I'm going to start by laying down a blue background on my painting. So I'm going to add some dark blue paint to my very high quality palette. And I'll start putting it on the canvas. Now, I should warn everyone that while I planned the painting out, I haven't actually painted it before. So it's hard to say exactly how this will affect things. Normally I have a demo painting that I could show you at the beginning here, but all I have right now is a crude printout of it that I made with the files I used to produce the stencils. If this turns out lousy, this won't be posted on YouTube. And as always, I'm using small crisscross strokes with the brush and trying to keep the layers of paint sort of even, so I don't have paint globbed on in some areas and applied very thinly in others. Okay, I've got the canvas covered in paint. I'm just going to cover the edges as well, just because it makes the canvas look a little more finished, even if you hang it unframed. Now, I'm going to try something a little different with this one. I used the crisscross strokes to cover the canvas in paint, but because this is a deep space and the painting itself will involve implied movement from a few ships, I'm going to add another thin layer of blue paint over top, just with straight up and down strokes to sort of help create that movement, or pardon me, illusion of movement. As an added bonus, it will also make the blue paint a little more concentrated and a little darker, which is a good thing. The crisscross strokes are fantastic for many, many things, but for depicting sort of the darkness of space, even with color in it, maybe not so much. Okay, that should do it for now. I'm going to let this layer of paint dry, put up my drop cloth behind the canvas, and I'll be ready for the next step in a few minutes. Okay, my canvas has dried enough that I'm going to move on to the next step. As you can see, I've added my lovely drop cloth behind the painting so that even if I splatter a little bit during this next step off the canvas, cleanup shouldn't be too bad. And here's where you're going to use some white paint. So grab your toothbrush, or old toothbrush I should say, or fan brush. Dip it into the white paint. You don't need a lot. And you'll use your paint knife or butter knife to gently pull down on the bristles and let them spring up, splattering paint onto your canvas. This should give us an illusion of a star field in the background. Okay, a couple of the globs ended up a little bigger than I was hoping for, but on the whole we've got sort of a starscape on the back of this painting now. So I'm going to let those new bits of white paint dry, and then I'll carry on with the next step. Alright, the starfield is dry enough for me to carry on. Now is when I'm going to start using stencils on this painting. Now, there are one or two of the larger paint specks from the previous step that aren't dry yet, but they're out of the way of my stencils, so they shouldn't cause too big a problem. Now, when you're using stencils at home, I strongly recommend laying the canvas down on a table to use the stencils. It's much, much easier than working with the stencils while the canvas is upright, and the only reason I'm not doing it is because it's harder for me to film it in that position. So I'm going to start with the big stencil of the Millennium Falcon, the hero of our painting. I'm going to put it on there something like this, I think. And I'm going to need some white paint. And I'm going to need to make sure my white paint is within easy reach while I have the stencil on there. Something like that. And then I'm just going to paint from the edges in towards the center to get the outline of the ship done. And now that I've got the outline done, I can remove the stencil for now and set it aside. And I'm going to fill in the remaining of the outline with white paint. Now, this isn't as solid a coat of white as I'd like, so I'll be reusing the stencil in a minute once this base coat of white dries and painting over it again. Something like that should be okay. Now, I'm going to see if I can paint the first layer of some of the other stencils while I'm at it, because it'll make things easier later on. Maybe I'll flip the canvas for this step as well. Yes, this will make it easier. So I have another stencil here for sort of speed lines following the Millennium Falcon. Okay, that turned out okay. And then, well, I should have room. I should be okay to do this. Fantastic. The stencil for a TIE fighter I'll put on this side. It's supposed to be flying the opposite direction of the Millennium Falcon. There we go. I also have a stencil for an X-wing fighter that will also be flying off in the opposite direction of the Falcon. Let's see how this stencil does. I'm not sure how the little details like the X-wings lasers will turn out. Most of the stencils I do don't have very, very small details like that. And so we'll see. This is very, very much an experimental piece. Not bad. And while I'm here, while I have the canvas flipped over, I'm going to wash my brush quickly and paint that top edge blue. Or, pardon me, it'll be the bottom edge when the painting is finished. Okay, we'll call it good there for the moment. I'm going to wash my brush, let the painting dry for a minute or two, and then I'll put a second layer of white paint on using the stencils. All right, that layer of white paint has dried well enough, and so I will be using the stencils for a second time. Try to line them up sort of carefully. Sort of carefully. And give them another layer of white paint. Now, if you're following along at home, this part with the Millennium Falcon's cockpit is probably the hardest part of this stencil. The strips of paper, even as cardstock, aren't really as robust as I'd like to hold it in place and make it easier to use as a stencil. So that's why I was holding on onto the different parts of the stencil there. I'm going to remove the stencil and just fill in the inside with some more white paint. Okay, that should do it. And then I'm going to redo each of the previous stencils. Actually, I may leave the speed lines alone. They look mostly okay. But I definitely want a second coat of white paint on the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing. And again, try to line the stencil up sort of carefully. There we go. And the TIE Fighter, or pardon me, and the X-Wing fighter. A little globbier than I'd like. I think I had too much paint on my brush, but that's okay. I'm going to let this white paint dry, and then I will apply my final stencil. All right. Now, the entire painting isn't perfectly dry, but the Millennium Falcon part is, and so I can carry on with my final stencil. And for that, I'm going to go back into the blue paint I used earlier. Fortunately, mine on my palette is still in usable shape, I think. And I'll line it up here. Something like that. And with that, our Star Wars masterpiece is complete. Suitable for hanging. If you liked this video, if you enjoyed painting along with me, please keep an eye on the Grande Prairie Public Library's Facebook page at facebook.com/gppl.ca to see what else we're coming up with during these sort of difficult times when the library isn't open to the public. With that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye now.